This is a video about the factory method and also abstract factory. So to start things off, I'd like to say that the factory method is not technically a design pattern, but it's more of a programming idiom. Factory method is a special case of the template method. So what the factory method does, it defines an interface for an object but lets the subclasses decide which class to instantiate. So you don't actually need to know with the factory what class you want to instantiate. You allow your subclasses to define that. So here's the UML. First up, we have an abstract creator here, where we define a factory method that returns a product. The product abstract class can be found here. Then what we do is we create a concrete creator that inherits the creator class, and we implement the factory method here. And then we have the concrete product that inherits the product and is created from the concrete creator. So why do we want to use the factory? The factory allows you to define and maintain relations between objects. So when you know that you want to create an object, but you don't care which type of an object, then factory is very useful. So let's take a small example, starting with the UML. There. So now, as was shown in the definition, I need two interfaces and two classes. And now what I'm going to do, I want to create a graphical user interface framework where I'm creating buttons. So this is very, very simple example. So I'm going to create buttons, and I'm doing it for Windows. So I'll have Windows buttons here. And then I'm gonna implement that button interface. There. And of course I need the framework. Or let's just call it Windows GUI. Be happy with that. And let's call the class Windows GUI creator. And let's implement that interface again. There. And now let's define a method for the interface where, as I said, we want to create buttons. So let's make a button return type and call the method add button. So we are adding a button, so we return a button to whatever program that is calling this method. So of course we want to copy and paste it here. And then we can just add arrows to show that my Windows GUI creator is creating Windows buttons, and it can create multiple of them. So basically this is how it works. So as an example, then let's make it into a Java program. There. And of course I forgot to add the main class. So let's do that now. I don't have a main. And the main class will be using, first up, the GUI framework as well as it will be using the buttons because we are returning a button. Many buttons there. Now just add the main method. And we're done. Now we can make it into Java code. Now we have stuff here. So the button and Windows button are just objects. There is no methods inside them, so no need to actually open those. And this interface only contains the definition. So what we want to check is this Windows GUI creator. So add button method. So the only thing we want to do here is that we're returning something. So we just create a new button, but of course not just a button, but the Windows button. So we create a new button and we throw it out. Now in the main class, what we do is we create a new Windows GUI creator. There. And now we want to add a button. And if we run this, it works, but nothing happens because the button doesn't print anything and so on. But here's the basic logic of factory method. So you have a factory that can create buttons, and you have, well, in this case, just one button, but you can create as many buttons as you want. So if you think of a normal graphical user interface framework, you just go to the designer and just drag and drop buttons to your program. So that's basically how this works. Then let's dive into the abstract factory. So these two are in the same lecture because they are very similar with each other, as can be seen from the names. So what the abstract factory does, it provides an interface for creating families or related or dependent objects without specifying their concrete classes. So here's the definition. A little bit more complicated than with the factory, but it's practically the same. So now we have an abstract factory interface, and we are creating multiple factories from them. Here from Concrete Factory 1, we have two methods defined from the interface. So we are creating product B1 that is actually implementing the abstract product B, and we are creating product A1, which implements the abstract product A. It looks a bit complicated, but is in fact really simple. So we are defining common methods for creating different products, and we are creating concrete factories to create those said different products. So why are we using this? You want to create a framework that forces a general procedure to its objects. So this is a very useful tool. You can extend it also in runtime without changing the existing code by just adding more factories, even though they would be using the same products on some level. So let's extend this example here. Let's close this. And what I want to do is that I'm removing this interface for now. And I'll remove that relation there and just move the main class out of the way. I'm putting the button there. I have a Windows button. And I'm gonna call this just Windows GUI class. So we'll extend this example by adding a possibility to create Linux GUI components as well. So let's add an interface, a common interface for all factories called GUI framework. I'm gonna put those in caps. And now the Windows GUI will be implementing that framework. There. And also let's add another product we can build. So let's make an edit box product, and we are adding a text field. So let's make a add text field method. And of course we want to define those in the interface. We're going a bit backwards, but it's fine because we have had something existing already. There. And in the previous example, there was nothing to print, so it would be preferable to add a constructor here that would actually print something. So let's just add a constructor so we can see stuff happening. And yes, there was that edit box class we want to use. Here's the interface for it. Let's make a class. Let's implement it. There. And let's call it Windows edit box. There. So now we basically have everything we need for the Windows graphical user interface. And now we also wanted to add this constructor here. So let's make a little bit more room. Of course, we want to add this connection from the GUI class to the edit box class. There. A little bit more room. Okay, so let's make that Linux graphical user interface library as well. So I'm calling my creator class Linux GUI, and I'm gonna implement the GUI framework. Okay, so I'm stealing these methods again. There. And now I also want to have those two products that I'm going to build. So as you can see, we have the Windows button and Windows edit box. We also need a Linux button, or it could also be, of course, a Mac, but I'm using Linux here. And Linux edit box. Let's add constructors to them and let's implement them. So the edit box takes Linux edit box like that, and with the button. There. And now the most difficult part here is to actually make the lines in a way that it makes sense. So we'll switch up Linux button, Windows button. Let's add connection from Linux GUI to Linux button. If I can find it, there. And again, multiple buttons can be created. And then the same connection from the Linux box, Linux edit box to the Linux GUI. There. And now it looks almost decent. Then let's add this main class here. And we're adding 3 connections. So first up to the GUI framework, because we are going to use both. Both of these 2 GUIs, so we can just connect to the interface. And of course the button and edit box, because we are going to use them as well. Button and edit box. So these connection types could be from 0 to many, but too much of a hassle to change them now. So here's the abstract factory that creates different frameworks for different operating systems and allows us to create multiple different components for our graphical user interfaces. There's also this little typo, so it's going to be void. Okay, so now we can take this and generate the code. So let's see how much it breaks stuff. First up, our main class is completely useless now. So let's leave it at that. And we don't have a Windows GUI.java at all. So we can delete it. There. Okay, so let's start with the easy ones. So let's take all these buttons and edit boxes and add some prints into the constructors. So those 2 guys and these 2 guys. And just a simple print line would be enough. So Windows edit box says that I'm creating new edit box for Windows. Of course, when you would be creating real ones, you want to define their sizes and all the stuff. I'm not actually that certain how that whole thing works. New button for Windows. Then let's create the Linux button first. Here we go. New button for Linux. And then the Linux edit box, same thing. Just printing stuff. There. So now we basically have all our products done here. So now let's focus on these 2 guys. So we have the Linux GUI. And we should have somewhere that Windows GUI, and it's right there. Okay, so we already implemented one of these in the previous example. So how it goes is that we just return a new instance of a class that we want to use. So return new, and we're in Windows, so we're gonna return a Windows button. And we're gonna return new Windows edit box. And the same thing with Linux. Nothing too complicated, just returning stuff. There. And now we have everything implemented, so all we have to do is take the main class and test it out. So just like before, let's create the Windows GUI first. So our new Windows GUI, and then we can try adding buttons and text fields. So, oh, apparently I have typo in the text field, but nothing too major. Then let's check out that Linux. Although nothing new, they probably will be exactly the same. Adding a button and adding a text field. Semicolon there. Let's run it. And now because I changed my interfaces, I'm getting a huge error from the Java language. So just a moment and I'll fix the whole thing. So here we go, redid it a bit. So the same thing still stands. We have our frameworks here and we are adding stuff. So I'm just adding new button and new edit box for Windows and then new button and new edit box for Linux. And of course I left the return values unchecked here, so they are just going somewhere and are going to be deleted at some point. So this is basically how Abstract Factory works. It looks a bit horrifying, but it is very, very simple once you understand it.